La Asamblea General.
The General Assembly will hear an address by His Excellency, the Republic of El Salvador, His Excellency Nayib Armando Bukele. I request protocol to escort His Excellency. On behalf of the General Assembly, I have the honor to welcome to the United Nations His Excellency, the President of the Republic of El Salvador, His Excellency Mr. Nayib Armando Bukele, and to invite him to address the Assembly.
Excelentísimos.
Your Excellency, President of the General Assembly, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and of Government, honourable members of the different delegations represented here today, I'd like to particularly greet my wife Gabriela and my daughter Leila, who are with me today. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the people of El Salvador, I am entrusted with the honour and the responsibility of serving you as President, and in that role I am pleased to address you here in this room for the first occasion from this rostrum. Now, if you'll just bear with me a second.
Estar aquí ante usted.
Standing here before all of you at this 74th General Assembly is a privilege and an honour that I wanted to share with the world. Given that the new world, is not here in this General Assembly, but rather out there where this photo will be seen and shared, in the largest network in the world, a network where billions of persons are connected in real time and share almost every facet of their lives. Believe me, many more people will see that selfie once I share it than will listen to this speech. And I hope that I took a good one. The thing is, although we might not want to accept it and we might kick against it, the internet is increasingly becoming the real world. And this format of gathering in person is becoming increasingly obsolete. We've heard here many good ideas, many very interesting speeches, but let's be honest with ourselves. The way in which we've been speaking has not changed over the last 74 years, but the world has changed, and the General Assembly continues to be the same, stuck in time. Perhaps within a few short years, tens of thousands of persons will no longer have to travel all the way to New York to meet here in this building, when a series of video conferences would have saved several $1 million, and I'm sure that meeting via video connection would have almost the same effect, if not a greater effect. Not only would the people who come here presently under this existing format not have to leave behind their families, their friends, their lives, and their daily tasks and duties to come to a series of meetings, which ever fewer people pay attention to. But we would, as I say, save costs. I imagine that a few or many would think that what I'm saying makes no sense whatsoever. But ask yourselves, is it really true that we're still relevant? Speak to your children, your grandchildren when you leave this meeting, and do so perhaps using WhatsApp on your smartphone. Ask them, what are they expecting? What grabs their attention? And it's not that the United Nations or the General Assembly is obsolete, although if we don't embrace change, we may very well be. But we still have a major opportunity to take advantage of this major network tying people together that is being built before our very eyes, to ensure that we remain relevant, but also increase our relevancy exponentially. If we don't, we could ignore that network, all of us, the entire UN system, governments, politicians, etc., and hope that what happened to Kodak, blockbusters, dinosaurs, and the Teen Choice Awards doesn't happen to us. The same that happened to many major retail stores, to huge hotel chains, to travel agencies, taxis, cable companies, and to political parties. The same that's happening to communications media will happen to us if we're not careful, if we do not watch out. You no longer need big or sophisticated equipment to film interviews. Look at the iPhone 11, for example, which I'm sure many of you have, or the new Samsung S10. You can shoot movies on them, on these small handheld devices. So why do we continue to do things in the same time-honoured, weary way? It is for this very reason that I have the opportunity and the honour to be here with you because of that use of technology. Just as the people in El Salvador grew fed up of the obsolete ways of doing things that had borne no fruit over the years and the decades, they decided to do things differently. And the UN must learn from that model. That would be progress. What should we do as the international community? We cannot redeem the format of this General Assembly. We cannot continue on this same weary track, ploughing the same furrow. It's already a bit late in the day, I would say, to continue doing things business as usual. This format is obsolete. We must accept that the world has changed, that the world is always changing, always shifting. But here we continue to hold this General Assembly in veneration and to meet in the same way that we have done in 74 years without really accepting the inevitable. The evolution of the digital revolution that is becoming a human revolution in which, just as in the UN, each country has a vote, be it large or small. The citizens of the world also have their own voice, which has been magnified thanks to these social networks. And so it's not just 193 voices representing 7 billion people. But if we were to open the door to the use of that technology, billions of individual people will be able to represent themselves and to be heard from themselves. The United Nations has huge convening power, but in traditional formats and in traditional guises, which weakens said convening power, paradoxically. And said convening power becomes weaker every year. All of the speeches by heads of state delivered in this assembly throughout this week will have less impact than a single video by a famous or well-known YouTuber. I bet you that one of those videos uploaded by a famous YouTuber will have more views than all of our speeches taken together. This new reality does not mean that we are irrelevant. I want to make that clear. In fact, there are still unique resources to resolve the greatest problems facing the world here in this house. But the format that we follow to address those problems is obsolete. As we've seen and experienced in many countries, a couple of images on Instagram can have a greater impact than any speech delivered in this assembly, including by the most powerful nations in the world. One image posted by a member of the people can trigger a revolution. So the time has come for us to be more inclusive, to accept and recognize that in all countries, at every hour of the day, every day, we are connected. And to make use of that, we need to seek a format that invites mass participation from all the countries of the world without them having to be physically here. Why don't we change the format so that we can be more inclusive and invite more citizens of the world to engage with us here through the General Assembly? Why don't we post a 50-minute video to an online UNGA platform so that all representatives of countries can then see it on demand without having to be present here listening to us live and in person whenever it's convenient for them, whenever they can escape from their other important tasks. They don't have to drop everything to come here. Tell me, those of you here in this room, how many of you watch television online? How many of you watch live television, I beg your pardon? How many of you read newspapers printed on paper? Ask the same question to your children, to the new generation, and you will have your answer. 1 week in the UN, when we could be resolving issues that are important to our nations, to our countries, is a waste of time if we keep working in this format. Our smartphones are the future of the General Assembly. So, colleagues, why don't we give the opportunity to the youth of the world to propose new ideas? Let those ideas come from young people, ambitious and driven because they want to change the world. They're not shackled by the formats, approaches of this past century. And in fact, they're already doing that. We are the ones who are not listening to them, even though their voices are raised. We're not opening up to them the possibility of making use of the resources available to us to harness their potential. Those of us who are here, supposedly representing new generations, can we genuinely and truthfully say that that's what we're doing? Do we really represent the young people of today, the people of our country? We need to open an opportunity for millions of citizens, millennials, centennials, people of any age and of every age, so that they have an opportunity to speak and to provide solutions that they have come up with to the problems of poverty, hunger, climate change, disease, etc. Why don't we organize a competition for ideas, an open marketplace? Open the doors so that young people from around the world can share their enthusiasm and will see themselves further motivated because it will become apparent that we are genuinely listening. We could award a prize for those whose arguments are the most inspiring and who come up with genuine proposals, giving us the key to resolve major problems that are confronting our planet, such as the provision of energy, water shortages, poverty, hunger, climate change, and a myriad other problems which are ranged against us. We have the resources for this organization, and it would be a mere drop in the water of the amount that is currently dispersed and channeled through the United Nations to award a prize of, say, $10,000 to each young people who, thanks to their proposals, succeeds in resolving the problems that we're faced with. Imagine how much we would save and how much we would achieve if we only opened our minds to this possibility. If we were to open the Pandora's box of the collective creativity of billions of human beings, billions of minds thinking at the speed of light, connected at the speed of light, seeking out solutions to problems which, under this archaic format that we have adopted and followed for the last 74 years, we've not been able to resolve. It is 2019. For obvious reasons, we have more technology than ever before in the history of humankind. Do we really believe that without changing our ways, we can address the problems that have only become exacerbated over the last 74 years? Perhaps some, many, or all of these problems that we have been unable to resolve to date could be resolved thanks to a millennial thinking outside the box. In some years, I would go so far as to say in no more than 10 years, everything that I'm saying to you will be happening. I'm quite convinced of that. So why don't we get ahead of the game and start things now? Why don't we begin to create and put together a platform where this new way of thinking and engaging for the General Assembly of the United Nations becomes a genuine mechanism for change, the evolution of how we need to accept the inevitable irrelevance of the current format of the General Assembly? We have to accept that it's not working and start, as of now, doing things differently. What I'm struggling to explain to you, and I hope it's clear, is that the process of this new way of thinking has already begun. We're in danger of missing the boat. All of the young people who may well be listening to me are doing it via their mobile phones. And those who take this reality seriously are already thinking of how we can bring about the change that our planet needs. We need a revolutionary way of working in the sphere of public policy. And we need to adopt the revolution that's been happening before our eyes, because it's already been successful in many places. In my own country, El Salvador, we have more smartphones than people, and we saw proof of the effective use of these new platforms, which tore down a hamstrung bipartite system that had exercised hegemonic power for many years, if not decades, since indeed the peace agreements were signed. I reached millions of citizens using Facebook Live, whilst my opponents held town halls with perhaps a handful, 100 at most, of their co-religionists, their adherents. The change in format, and not just of message and of content, meant that the people of El Salvador elected me as president. And this is how we are governing as well. I have a fixed line in my office, but I have never used it. When I need information, I ask it directly of my ministers without needing to involve intermediaries or middlemen, without needing to convene meetings that causes delay. Communication today is direct and much more democratic. There are no filters between me and my ministers. We all have a voice that we can raise, that can be heard and that should be heard. A few days ago, I proved this to myself once again. On the 15th of September in El Salvador, we celebrated our independence. Whilst the attention of the major media, major press outlets, and the majority of the government was focused on a huge parade that was taking place in the capital in San Salvador, the children of a small village called El Aguacate paraded down a narrow rural dirt road. A teacher had dressed them up as if they were a first-rate band of peaceful protesters, sparing no effort for the costumes that they wore, etc. Everything had been made themselves. Their very drums that they were beating as they marched were made from powdered milk cans that had been repurposed. Somebody in that small rural community took a video of these children and their parade on their mobile phone and posted it to their Facebook page, probably so that their friends and relatives could see it. I'm sure that they never imagined that the patriotism and the sheer joy of these children, despite the shortages they faced, meant that this video would go viral in my country. In a matter of hours, the major media outlets had picked up on the video and thousands of El Salvadorians had shared it, and eventually the video reached me. Immediately upon seeing the video, I instructed my ministers to go immediately into action to improve the conditions in the village of El Aguacate. Immediately through WhatsApp, we reached agreement on a visit to the school. 3 days later, our ministers were able to deliver real musical instruments to these children. We're now paving the streets of that village. We will lay LED lights. We will renovate the school, and we will leave the community in a better place than anybody could have imagined it would be a month ago. And all of that huge process of change began with a viral video. Without us really realizing when it happened, almost as if it happened by stealth, everybody today has a mobile phone connected to the internet, and thus they have a voice. They are a source of information, and they can have a political impact. The fact that this video of these children marching went viral raised thousands of voices to encourage them, and also thousands of voices that called upon the government to act meaningfully to bring about change for these children. The school teacher in El Aguacate village and the person who posted the video ensured that something that was perhaps banal and very local was seen by the entire country, and this changed the reality of those students, of those pupils. The environment of those children is not what it was before. Their community has been transformed. They are just like us now, citizens of the world, no longer cut off, restricted to the small space that they called home. And if we're speaking here of a single teacher, a school, a small village, in a small district, in a tiny municipality in El Salvador, imagine, therefore, the transformative and convening power that the General Assembly of the United Nations might have using those same channels, using the same network used by those children. Why don't we harness this convening power? Why don't we use this platform to convene the citizens of the world to participate in this General Assembly? Please do not misunderstand me. The United Nations plays a critical role in maintaining world peace, in fighting against hunger, in improving health, in seeking out paths for development, in protecting the rights of women and children, protecting the environment, in tackling the problem of refugees, and including ensuring the non-proliferation of nuclear weapons. But we also have to face up to reality, the fact that we're arriving at a tipping point in which the problems that we have ranged against us are overwhelming us. The revolution in communication technology is a fact. We cannot deny it. It's a democratic revolution. It's the start of a new human age and era. Societies have made progress organically, but the United Nations not. We remain moribund, stuck in time. We must change, adapt, and accept that progress is a reality. Today, the citizens of the world are more empowered than ever before. Let us give them the voice that they deserve here in the General Assembly, and not simply restrict this to the few handful of privileged persons who meet here as if we were the owners of absolute truth. Some of you understand what I'm explaining very well. Some are still not on board. Unfortunately, some refuse to accept this new democratic format of communication, the freedom of expression on steroids, if you were. Billions of people interconnected, all of them with an opinion, all of them with a solution, all of them with an idea, and each and every one of them with a voice. Successful politicians used to say that all politics were local, and they were right. Those politicians understood what it was that won elections, that focus on the local. But today, politics are personal, and few people seem to have understood that, but it is the reality. And those of us who have understood it have been successful. We have done so because this rigid way of involving citizens of the world in how to resolve the most important problems facing us as important, needs to change. Doesn't this mean that the UN should be doing this as well? Thank you very much.
En nombre de la Asamblea.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I wish to thank the President of the Republic of El Salvador for the statement just made. May I request representatives to remain seated while we greet the head of state.